Hey everybody, I'm George, that's the Lion. Let's review a book. Scott had never been happier in his life. Only happiness was too mild. Here, as he explored the farthest limits of his stamina, was a new world. Everything leads to this, he thought. To this elevation. If this is how dying feels, everyone should be glad to go. I really like books. I don't talk about it much on this channel. I've been a reader for a long time, of course. As a kid, I read a lot of books, but I didn't enjoy it until the Harry Potter books. Those books made me a reader, and since then I've been reading everything, and obviously I'm a massive Stephen King fan, as you can tell from my collection here. I actually used to have way more books than that, and a lot more Stephen King books too, but when I moved from Colorado here to Texas, I had to kind of condense everything down, so this is just a small portion of the Stephen King books that I love. What I love about Stephen King is how prolific he is. The guy has been writing for decades, and he has like a new book every year, if not 2 or 3 a year. And I used to be pretty current with them, but I stopped. For no particular reason, I just stopped reading books in general for a while. I think I might have gotten too distracted with anime and depression. Anime and depression, that's what I should rename this channel. Anyway, so I recently moved into this new apartment and I got all my books put up on a shelf, and I realized that there was a Stephen King book that I hadn't read that I could probably knock out in like an afternoon. Which, if you haven't guessed, is Elevation. Right out of the way, out of the bat, I did want to give my review. The book is good. Thumbs up. 5 out of 5. Excellent read. You should check it out. Seriously, it's not one of King's like all-time greats or anything, but I really enjoyed reading it, and I'm sure I'm going to revisit it over the years. I know Stephen King has a lot of critics, and the most common thing I see, honestly, has nothing to do with the substance of his work, more so just the length of a lot of his stuff. And as you can see, this book is a fraction of the length of most Stephen King books, so I don't want to hear any complaints. It's only 146 pages. Seriously, 146 pages is nothing. There are short story novellas that Stephen King has written that are longer than this. So, what's the story about? In this particular case, it's about a guy named Scott who wakes up one day and discovers that he's losing weight, but not en masse. Like, the opening scene of the movie is him going to visit his friend who's a former doctor, and they're talking about this phenomena, and Scott has his pockets full of coins and rocks to like weigh him down, and the doc's like, yeah, you look a little bit thinner. While Scott's losing weight on the scale, he's not visually getting thinner. To everybody who around him, he still looks like the same pudgy guy. Like, not like fat by any means, but an older guy who's clearly pushing it. And then Scott takes his jacket off, which is full of all the fucking coins and stuff, weighs himself again, and the scale still says, 175 or whatever I just said. His weight doesn't change, even when he takes off heavy clothes or takes like stuff out of his pockets. He is becoming lighter. Now right away, this might remind you of another Stephen King story called Thinner. It's not that. This is not a horror story. This isn't like a nightmarish scenario for Scott. It's more just interesting for him, and it gives him a certain perspective on life. Plus, one of the side effects of whatever's happening to him is that he feels great all the time. He kind of feels elevated, if you will.
Feel pretty good. And I'm not scared at all. I just feel kind of invincible.
Me too. I got a very positive attitude about this.
Good, me too.
Yeah.
He feels lighter than air, he can run, he's got lots of energy, it's excitement. He just feels kind of groovy a lot. And he also knows that something's probably wrong as the weight loss continues, and he weighs himself consistently, and, well, the rate of the weight loss is speeding up with no end in sight. So something's got to give at some point, and Scott knows it. And he wants to just kind of make things right in his own way, in his own small corner of the world. So what's going on with Scott is there are these 2 women across the street. They moved in a while ago and opened up a vegan restaurant in Castle Rock. And they were doing okay, it's a nice restaurant, but once the town realized that this was a lesbian couple and they were from outside, the business stopped, everybody got mean and cold, and he'd been noticing it, but not really engaging in it. Scott's not a bully. He wasn't being mean to these women, but he knew the town was kind of being cold towards them for no reason, and he didn't do anything to stop it. And that's the central relationship of the story. Scott and his neighbors, these women who feel so victimized and isolated for no particular reason, and their neighbor, Scott, who they've always thought is just kind of a prick. Just another old white asshole down the block from them who probably has stupid backwards thoughts about their lifestyle. In reality, of course not. Scott's not a douchebag. His only interaction with them, aside from seeing them out and about at town, is asking them to pick up after their dog when it takes a dump on his lawn. And they're like, oh, our dogs would never do that. And he's like, yeah, but they did. And they take that as an affront and whatever. It's a bunch of bad blood. So he decides he wants to kind of try to make amends with these women. And not just for him, but for this town. This is a town he's grown up in his whole life. He loves it here. He knows the people here are good, and the way these women are being treated is wrong. So that's the crux of the story, is he's going to try to make it better. And he just doesn't really know how to go about doing it. It's just something he wants to do. Aside from Thinner, the other Stephen King story about a guy slowly losing weight until he's probably going to die, the big connection Elevation has to previous King stories is The Long Walk. Fun fact that I just realized while recording the video, both Thinner and The Long Walk, the previous Stephen King works that remind me the most of Elevation, both of those are Bachman books, his pen name. That has nothing to do with anything, but hey, I learned a thing. So The Long Walk is about just that, a long walk. It's about a bunch of characters who have to keep walking, and if they go below 4 miles an hour for too long or for too many times, they're murdered. So the walk continues till there's only one left, and that person is a big champion. So it's, you know, a Shirley Jackson kind of story about community getting together to do this thing to sacrifice the young men, because I think it's only men who compete. Now obviously that's a goofy, maudlin, over-the-top kind of premise. The only thing that's really connective is the walking. Both The Long Walk obviously has lots of walking, and Elevation, the central kind of like crux of the story, ends up being a town race. But in trying to make amends with his neighbors, he makes a bet with one of them saying, hey, you used to be a runner. If I beat you in that race, then you have to start being friendly to me. Like, you have to let me come over to the restaurant. And she's like, dude, you're gonna die, old man. He's like, yeah, whatever, it's my problem. If you're scared, she's like, I can't believe you're trying to convince me by saying, I can't believe you're trying to reverse psychology me into racing. You know what, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm not scared. Anyway, the sections of prose dealing with the race in Elevation are very, very similar to the prose dealing with all the walking going on in The Long Walk. It's really interesting, engaging, riveting stuff. That's where the opening quote from the video came from. That's where the title drop of the story comes from, the elevation one feels. Scott becomes very hyper-aware of it during that race. Anyway, that's about all I wanted to say about the book. It's short, it's good. I want to try doing book reviews more. Let me know if this was good or terrible. I tried to make it as short as possible, just to kind of get the point across. I hope you enjoyed it. Here are all the books I have. If you want me to review something else, let me know. I do intend to do this again. I want to review a manga at the very least, and probably just whenever I happen to finish a book. Unless people absolutely fucking hate it and have no interest, so let me know, I guess. Anyway, thank you for watching my video where I review a Stephen King book that came out years ago. Stick around for a very special message.